Picture this. High above our heads, beyond the reach of commercial satellites and human astronauts, a shadow glides silently through the void. It's unmanned, nearly invisible to tracking systems, and utterly enigmatic. For years, this ghostly figure, known as the X-37B spaceplane, has circled the Earth. But what exactly is it doing? Is it watching, waiting, or worse, preparing? This is not science fiction. This is the terrifyingly real, cutting-edge project of the U.S. Space Force. A secretive $1 billion initiative that has left adversaries like China and Russia scrambling to keep up. And the scariest part? Its true mission is classified. To understand the X-37B, we have to rewind to the late 1990s, a time when NASA envisioned a reusable spaceplane to carry out research and satellite repairs. This dream was supposed to advance humanity's peaceful exploration of space, but in 2004, the project took a dark turn. The Department of Defense quietly seized control of the program. NASA's plans were shelved, and the project disappeared into the labyrinth of military black budgets. What was once a beacon of exploration was now a shadowy tool of war. When the X-37B finally emerged in 2010 for its first mission, it was clear that this wasn't your average spacecraft. It was compact, 29 feet long, about the size of a small bus, but packed with advanced technologies. And yet, despite its relatively small size, the X-37B was built for missions that could last over 2 years. Think about that. A robotic spacecraft, silently orbiting Earth for 908 days without a single human on board. The X-37B's design might remind you of the retired space shuttle, but this is no relic of the past. Its outer shell is made of radar-absorbing materials, rendering it nearly invisible to ground-based tracking systems. It operates at altitudes of up to 500 miles, high enough to evade most traditional surveillance, yet low enough to potentially interfere with satellites. But it's not just the stealth that makes the X-37B alarming. Inside its payload bay, essentially its cargo hold, it can carry classified experiments, miniature satellites, or even experimental weapons. And here's where the speculation begins. The US government claims the X-37B is simply testing technologies like advanced sensors and thermal shielding. But skeptics and rival nations believe it's far more sinister. Could it be testing orbital weapons, like lasers capable of disabling satellites? Or is it deploying tiny, undetectable drones to monitor enemy activity? China, in particular, has voiced concerns that the X-37B could be used to sabotage its growing network of satellites, which are critical to its military and economic infrastructure. And if that doesn't sound alarming enough, consider this. The X-37B's missions are so secretive that even Congress only learns the bare minimum. The emergence of the X-37B has sent shockwaves through the corridors of power in Beijing and Moscow. Both nations are heavily reliant on satellites for navigation, communication, and intelligence. If the X-37B has the capability to disable or destroy these assets, it could cripple their military operations in an instant. In response, China has ramped up its own space program, testing anti-satellite missiles and developing a mysterious spacecraft of its own. In 2021, China launched an experimental spaceplane that bore an uncanny resemblance to the X-37B. But despite their efforts, China and Russia remain years, if not decades, behind. This gap in capability isn't just about technology, it's about strategy. The US isn't just playing defense in space, it's preparing to dominate it. The X-37B is a clear signal that the US sees space not as a neutral domain, but as a battlefield. The X-37B represents the cutting edge of military technology, but it also raises uncomfortable questions. What happens when space becomes weaponized? Imagine a future where satellites are no longer tools for communication or exploration, but weapons of war. Nations could launch preemptive strikes from orbit, targeting infrastructure on Earth or in space. A single attack on a satellite could create a debris field, endangering every spacecraft in its path, a phenomenon known as the Kessler syndrome. And the X-37B, with its stealth capabilities and extended mission durations, could be the perfect tool for waging such a war. But here's the kicker. The United States isn't just preparing for space conflicts, it's setting the rules. By deploying the X-37B, the United States is essentially saying, this is the new normal. And that leaves other nations with a choice: keep up or fall behind. The X-37B isn't just a weapon, it's a marvel of engineering. Its brain is an advanced AI system capable of managing complex operations autonomously. This AI can adapt to changing conditions in orbit, ensuring the spacecraft remains operational for months, or even years. Its thermal shielding allows it to withstand the extreme temperatures of re-entry, while its solar panels ensure it has a virtually unlimited power supply. And its maneuverability means it can change orbits, making it unpredictable and nearly impossible to track. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the X-37B is its potential for upgrades. Unlike traditional satellites, which are essentially static once launched, the X-37B can return to Earth, be refitted with the latest technologies, and relaunch. This makes it a constantly evolving threat. The X-37B's capabilities are impressive, but they come at a cost. By pushing the boundaries of what's possible in space, the United States is opening a Pandora's box of ethical and legal challenges. For one, its missions are conducted in near-total secrecy. This lack of transparency undermines international trust and fuels conspiracy theories. Rival nations are left guessing about its true purpose, increasing the likelihood of misunderstandings or even preemptive strikes. Then there's the question of militarizing space. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 prohibits the placement of weapons of mass destruction in orbit, but the X-37B operates in a gray area. While it doesn't carry nukes, its potential for offensive operations blurs the line between defensive and aggressive capabilities. Critics argue that the X-37B sets a dangerous precedent, encouraging other nations to develop their own orbital weapons. The result? An arms race in space, with consequences that are impossible to predict. Despite these concerns, the X-37B is only the beginning. The United States Space Force is already planning the next generation of spaceplanes, which could be larger, faster, and even more advanced. These new spacecraft could carry hypersonic missiles, deploy swarms of drones, or serve as mobile command centers. They could also be used for civilian purposes, like repairing satellites or conducting scientific research. But make no mistake, their primary purpose will be military. The question is not whether space will become a battlefield, it's how soon. The X-37B is more than just a technological marvel. It's a warning. It shows us what's possible when innovation meets ambition, but it also reminds us of the dangers of unchecked power. As the United States, China, and Russia race to dominate the final frontier, the stakes have never been higher. The decisions we make today will shape the future of space and our place in it for generations to come. So, what do you think? Is the X-37B a necessary step in securing America's future, or is it a dangerous escalation in the race for space supremacy? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Because whether we like it or not, the future of warfare is already here, and it's happening above our heads.